again, and he was like, literally, what do you have to lose? Cannot hurt. So I hit send again. It took me 3 seconds to do that, and then I ended up getting on the show.
Yeah, 3-second decision that led you to something great.
What's going on, everyone? Isaac Mashman here. Super excited for this video today. We are currently waiting for a friend of mine. Over the past couple of years, I've been building a relationship with him, a friendship, and his name is Giancarlo Bernini. He is a magician. He's performed for Penn Teller. He's actually fooled Penn Teller. And he's been performing at a youth camp over the summer, and he hit me up and he said, hey Isaac, I'm gonna be in Little Rock. So we are going to go down and meet him here in a couple of minutes, and I just figured I would share some of our conversation about taking relationships that you meet online to the offline space. I think that this is something that more people need to do, and to realize that when you're talking to somebody on the other end of the phone, they are a real person, real people that you can do business with, real relationships that you can build, real friendships that can develop. And so without further ado, let's go.
You know, we were supposed to do this last year and our schedules just kept changing and it was just a really hectic time. But now we're actually going to be able to shake hands, and man, there are so many people that I'm looking forward to doing this with over the span of the next couple of years, over the next span of 2024. I mean, even my business partner I've never met in person. That's kind of a wild thought, isn't it? Doing business with people that you've never even personally met. I don't know. It feels like I know these people for years and years. Guess who I drug in? Giancarlo Bernini, good friend after a couple of years. Like I said a couple minutes ago, this is somebody who I connected with online, never met in person, and I've been looking forward to this. Last year, our schedules just kept conflicting, so I'm super excited to be able to shake hands with you here and have a conversation, man.
Yeah, you finally made it happen. In-person meeting for the first time. Literally, we just, 10 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago, we just met for the first time?
A little bit more than that.
It's been a while.
It's been a very hectic day for both of us, but man, why are you in Arkansas, first and foremost?
I was doing some shows up a couple hours away, and so I'm just on my way back to the airport.
There we go. And how complicated was it to meet up and actually get something going?
It wasn't hard at all, except for the fact that there was some traffic issues, but other than that, it was really easy. We just literally, hey, I'm in town, do you want to hang out?
Yeah, and that's literally how difficult it needs to be. So it's like putting your best foot forward. So over the next couple of minutes, we're just going to sit down and continue our conversation that we are already having, talking a little bit about what he's got going on and the future aspirations and dreams. So, man, a couple months ago, you were on Penn Teller's Fool Us, right?
Yeah, that was aired in February.
How was that?
It was a crazy experience. It was kind of cool. It's this TV show that I watched growing up when I was in high school. So to be on the show, insane, and the outcome even crazier.
Yeah, and this was the second time you were on, right?
Second time I was on. So I was on in 2019 and then again now in 2024.
Okay. And the first time compared to the second time, what was different?
So the second time I won, I fooled them, which was the big thing.
Yeah.
And also, but from a more important perspective, the second time there was more confidence, I would say.
Interesting.
I have people watching both clips and they go, dude, you're a different person. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when we filmed that previous one to now, I can see my development, I can see my growth, my stage presence, not saying it's perfect yet, but it's definitely improved, and you can see it side by side in those clips.
Yeah.
But also, when you walk in, the first time was an experience where I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do whatever they tell me to do, make, the producers, they're making this TV show, whatever they tell me to do, I need to do.
Yeah.
This time I was a little bit more confident in my branding and my perspective enough to tell them, and learning that it's not a bad thing to be able to say, hey, by the way, I know you told me to say this way, to say this line, but I think it would sound more like me if I said it this way. And be able to have that kind of conversation and not push back, not argue with them or not follow their direction, but take what they're telling me to do and figure out, okay, but how does Giancarlo do that? And then offer back as hey, can I do it this way? I feel like this feels more like me. And most of the time they're like, actually, that's way better, fantastic. Because realizing that they don't know my brand as well as I know myself.
Yeah. Man, I completely butchered your name before. I've known you for so many years, but I completely butchered your name. But I think that you touched on something really interesting, which is the law of familiarity. And basically, the more familiar you are with something or somebody is with you, it'll be basically more level and more equal. And what you did is you approached them as, hey, I know that you guys have the audience, or you guys have this reputation, but so do I. And you approached it as if you were their equal.
And I think that that's really interesting. And it's not in some like cocky way. It's it's like, I'm here, you invited me on, let's do this. Let's approach this as professionals.
For sure. And there, I mean, I would never, say equal, in terms of like, definitely approached it with humility and being like, oh my, I'm a contestant on the show, it's their show. But there is a degree to where it was important for me to know my place, to know like, I am here representative of my brand. They're giving me a slot in the show, and so I need to be the best version of Giancarlo I can be. And going in knowing what that is and what that means was crucial. And being as confident in my brand as they are in their show and their brand.
I'd be really interested to watch that first clip. It's been a while since I've seen that one, but I watched the second one, and you had a demanding stage presence, and we were having a conversation about how important it is for, like, let's say kids or like younger guys, younger people, younger professionals, in terms of confidence and speaking ability, and why being in magic is something so interesting, because if you didn't have that confidence, you wouldn't be able to come up and be like, hey, I need you to come on stage and do X, Y, and Z if you yourself are not comfortable on stage. How was it overcoming that fear when you were starting out, or maybe not even fear would be the best word, but finding yourself on stage?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a lot of the reason a lot of kids get into magic is because my experience was I wasn't good at, sports and video games and like all the traditional things. I had a hard time making friends, and so magic was a way for me to connect with people around me. I could, bring a deck of cards to school and show people tricks, and suddenly, I was making friends, or at least having conversations, getting invited to things. And I think a lot of kids get into magic, or in other art forms too, but my experience with magic, people get into it because it's a way for them to have a cool thing that they can do, that they can show as kind of like a crutch to like socially like engage with their peers. And over time that helps build confidence to the point where magic no longer becomes a crutch, but it becomes a thing that I do because I see it as a way to spread joy to the people around me. So it's no longer a thing that serves me, but a thing that I use to serve others. And I think that is the turning point. And I remember when that turning point started to happen, when I went from college into doing magic full time, that shift happens. Because in college, I'm still doing magic for my friends. Now I'm doing it as a career because people are paying me to come do a show, and I realize the impact it's having on them. So I think that's the moment that you realize the transition between I'm doing this for me versus I'm doing this for them.
Interesting, and treating it as a profession versus a hobby. That's also important. That I mean, even with work with clients, a lot of times, like, people might want to do an esports team. I've had several conversations with people, and it's like, you're building out this community, but to what end and what's the end goal? And I think understanding that outlook is so important with not only building your personal brand, but also a business. And how was that? I mean, I imagine even when you were in high school, you probably had friends that were like, hey, do this trick at the high school table, and it's like, probably didn't take you serious, versus today, like, you're traveling, you're doing this, it works, clearly. And how do you feel looking back on that? Did you ever think that you would take this as a full-time thing?
No, it never seemed possible. Like, I'll tell you that right now. Like, I always assumed that to become a professional magician, you had to, it's like a 0.001% chance. Because my only experience with magic growing up was either you had a big show in Las Vegas, like the ones you see on TV and when you visit Vegas, or you are, like a birthday party magician, which nothing wrong with that, but not, the kind of magic that I'm doing now, which is corporate events. And so, like, it was in college when I saw a bunch of people doing magic full time. I met a lot of people. I went to a magic convention, basically.
Okay.
I went to my first magic convention, and I saw a bunch of full-time pros, and I was like, there were birthday party magicians, because, when I grew up, I had magicians at my birthday party, so that was my experience. But then I was like, what are these other guys? Corporate shows, and they're doing trade shows, and they're performing for churches, and they're performing for, all this other stuff. So my view of, wait, and they can all make a living doing this, like, changed drastically. And that's when I realized, maybe I can do this too. It doesn't seem as difficult if all these people are doing it. And I remember that switch turning on for me that day. And of course, I still do, I'll do a birthday party every once in a while. And one day I want to have a show in Vegas. But all this other stuff in between, it just broadened my perspective.
Now, I remember several years ago when I was in the network marketing industry and got out of that industry, the leader, and over dinner, one of the biggest things that he was talking about was making a decision to, become X, Y, and Z role in the company. And I think that stood with me, even getting out of the industry and getting into consulting and what I'm doing today, of making the decision to grow a business or making a decision to do and write a book or to be on a podcast or to do whatever that ambition might be, regardless of person. And a couple minutes ago, before we started recording, you said something so profound, and you said that the one thing is with you and magic is you didn't outgrow it. And that a lot of the other people that, you know, they might get that magic hit when they're 10 or 11, they outgrow it and they go about their life and career. Why do you think you didn't outgrow it?
I can't tell you for sure. I can tell you that it resonated with me in a way that, you know, really stuck. But I also have a friend who's a really, really talented musician. He does music full time. Yeah. And I was doing card tricks one time. I was like, man, like I could never get into magic. I was never good at it. And I remember thinking, I'm like, it's not that you weren't good at it. Nobody was good at it when they started. I wasn't good at it when I started. It's that you didn't love it enough to where you got good at it because you kept practicing. You found you loved music more, so you became a musician, and you were great at that, and that was your thing. I tried music, and I was never good at it. Like, I tried learning guitar, I tried learning piano. I was terrible at it. But I was just as bad at magic when I started. But the thing about it is I was trying music, and I was just not getting better because I didn't care enough. I didn't like it enough. I didn't have this, like, internal, like, I really want to be a musician, though. Yeah. Like, I didn't have that. So it just depends on your personality, your sense of like the things you find interesting. I've been watching, watching Disney movies like Aladdin, The Sword in the Stone, Fantasia, like all this magical stuff. And I loved it as a kid. So it just depends on who you are and what you love.
Do you think that there has been a part that has come naturally to you that you've been able to go deeper on? Because a lot of times, like Steve Harvey, several years ago when I was at an event, he said that the one thing you need to lean into is your God-given gift. The one thing that you think is, it takes less effort for you to be good at, where somebody else might compliment you on it and you're like, it's just normal. Was there a certain gift that you had?
There's just something that I have a knack for. Things that have just like come very easily to me that I see, that I've noticed about myself. But that's not the same magic in general. Like you have to, naturally be gifted at magic, because the cool thing about magic is that there's so many different forms of magic. There's mentalism, the mind reading stuff. There's the visual magic. There's like the performance, like competition based magic, which you have to, if you're good at dance and you're good at like, have a good sense of rhythm, you'd be good at, which I'm not great at. There's, comedy magic. There's, so I think magic is such a broad field. Anybody can find a place in it of a thing that they're good at. So I wouldn't say you have to. There are some people who just aren't good at magic. I would say that every single person has something that they're good at, and they would probably fit in the magic world somewhere if they wanted to be a magician. But maybe maybe they should be a musician. Maybe they should be something else. But I would never say you have to be gifted at magic. But I would say that depending on what you are good at, you'll find a place in it if that's what you want to do.
There's this divergence between natural gifts and having to work hard at something, and I think that no matter how gifted you are at something, I mean, you could be 6'6" and be a big dude for football in the NFL, but that doesn't mean you don't show up to practice.
Right.
And how long have you been practicing magic for as a professional?
I've been doing this professionally since 2019, so about 5 years. It was right when the first Fool Us happened.
Okay. And then to kind of transition, because I'm really big on the personal branding stuff, so I could talk about branding and PR and everything and what's worked. Now, being on a show like Penn Teller, the first time, there was no way that it could have went wrong. Now, you could have butchered the act or something, but you were still on national television taking it serious. It's not like you were some weirdo on AGT, in some costume as a joke, as a gag. Like, you were taking this seriously.
I was taking it seriously, and the other thing too is, unlike some other shows, Penn and Teller, if you were to mess up, you didn't fool them, but they reshoot it. There's you never see an act go wrong on Penn and Teller, and I think that was something that I wish I would have known better the first time, and definitely the second time. That it's like, I'm not too nervous because if I mess up, we can refilm.
It would have given you more confidence to be like, oh, okay, I can fall on my face, but I'm still getting up, and it's still going to.
It's going to look amazing on TV. Which obviously I can't rely on for live performances, and that's important for me to be good. But in terms of that show specifically, there was a bit of confidence in knowing that, okay, I'm going to do my best, but even if I do mess up, it's still going to look great because we'll refilm.
Yeah, and being on a larger stage in front of two legends. I mean, growing up, my grandparents used to turn on Penn and Teller too. It was cool because I would have never thought a couple years later I'd be interviewing somebody who actually fooled Penn and Teller. I think that's cool, man.
I grew up watching it too.
Yeah, my grandmother would be looking down right now being like, man, that's pretty dope. Now, talking about that decision leading up to even applying, why did you do that? Why did you have the guts to do it?
You know, it was one of those things where it's like, it can't hurt.
Okay.
Right.
All it
takes is you film a video of you doing a trick and you send it in, you email it to the producers and hope it happens, right? And I had a mentor consultant who helped me with the whole process, and one of the things that he's really taught me throughout the everything, not just that, is it's like, of course it's worth it. Send the email, do the thing. And it's not that hard. It's impossible, but it's not that hard.
Yeah.
Right. That's the cool thing about magic. That's the irony of like, we're supposed to be doing impossible things, and then you realize the impossible is not that hard.
Yeah. It's interesting. A lot of times people talk about what is your purpose, what is your why, and I spent years, I think, trying to figure that out. Is like, what is my purpose? Well, my purpose in life is to live up to my potential in all areas. Physically, interpersonally, fiscally, emotionally, spiritually, etc. And then, what is your why? Well, why not? And that was really the best answer that I could ever deduce of why not? Why wouldn't I? And it's kind of along the same lines of, what if this fails versus what if this actually you get the yes? And I've noticed that too, man. It's like having almost starting out, it's cockiness until it develops into confidence. Because you start out with like this, like, oh, who am I to do this? Well, I'm gonna try it anyway.
Right.
And then over time you develop that experience. It's not faking it till you make it. It's you're trying things, figuring out what works, and then you could spend time doing more of that thing. Sure. And so you were invited back on for the second time, weren't you?
Yeah, well, I still auditioned. I still sent them
you still auditioned.
audition video. But it was also a little bit, I'm not going to say easier, but like they were more familiar with me. So it was more kind of like, okay, we know that he, does quality stuff, and we know we invite him on, he's going to be easy to work with and stuff. Like there was that, pre-existing relationship that definitely, I think, made it easier to get on the second time.
Law of familiarity there.
For sure. Now, I did apply twice. I sent in,
cool.
I auditioned 4 times and got on twice.
Okay.
And the reasons you don't get on the show also have nothing to do with whether you're good or bad, because I sent the same trick in twice. And the first time, they didn't even reply to it because, and somebody told me like they probably had a similar trick last season, so it just didn't fit in, or they were just out of spots or whatever. And then the second time, they're like, "This is great, we'll have you on the show," and I fooled them. And it's like, if I had stopped because I didn't get on the first time, I would have never gotten on the second time, never would have fooled them.
But why didn't you give up? Why didn't you be like, oh, I didn't get accepted? Why did you still apply?
Because I remember the moment. I was actually there with this guy I was talking about who does helps me with consulting, mentor figure for me, Brent. And I was literally sitting with him, and I heard that auditions were opening again for this next season. And I go, I auditioned last time, and they never even replied. Should I even send anything again? Should I just send in the same link? I'll just copy paste the link and just literally, it was a 3-second thing. I'm like, I clicked the email, click copy paste from the email, the exact same email I sent last year, just send it, like, and he was like, send. Literally, what do you have to lose? Cannot hurt. So I hit send again. It took me 3 seconds to do that, and then I ended up getting on the show.
Yeah, 3-second decision that led you to something great.
A 3-second decision that changed my career. Literally, do I copy paste this email and send it again? And that changed my life, right?
Yeah, I think that's really a testament, man. I mean, even in my own career, my life, a lot of those decisions and relationships were from clicking the follow button one time and then starting to build that relationship, or having the audacity to send that email or to ask that person for the close. Or I mean, it transpires not even in the entertainment space, but the business space too, which my audience will love. Now, I don't want to talk all about Penn Teller, man, because you've done something so great outside of Penn Teller. I want to talk about, really quick, and we'll wrap this up, would be landing gigs. Because as a magician or as an entertainer, as an artist, as a comedian, you're going into the space and you're thinking, oh my God, I need to ask somebody to pay me for my craft.
Right.
How was that? What was your first gig that you were paid for? And how has it evolved into where you are today, landing, corporate gigs to where you're booked?
Yeah, the first gig I was ever paid for, I think, was in high school. They paid me $100 to do like a walk around at a company event.
Cool.
Somebody from my church who knew me.
Okay.
And that was pretty cool. But I think there's this weird feeling of like, I need to make a living doing this. And we were talking earlier about like raising rates and changing prices, because at some point I need to, my costs are going up. I'm building a better show. I'm investing more time. I'm investing more into systems and stuff. And I'm getting a better show. My show is getting better.
And everything costs more today too.
And everything costs more. We've got inflation, all that stuff. So I have to raise my rates. At the same time, this is something that I would pay to do. Like, I love magic. I do it, like, I eat, sleep, breathe, think magic all day long. Like, there's a very little work-life balance here.
Yeah.
I do it for fun. I do it for hobbies. When I'm out with my friends, they're like, you know, so they're like, dude, I know you do this for work, so we won't ask you, but like, we would love to see a trick if you'd be willing to show us. I'm like, of course I'm gonna, like, let's sit here for an hour and do magic tricks. Like, I love it, but and I've had to learn to charge. I've had to learn to be like, you know, someone asks for a show and be like, this is what I charge, and because I have to learn to be a businessman when really I'm an entertainer at heart, and business doesn't come naturally to me.
And that's probably more uncomfortable than anything that you've ever done.
Oh, yeah.
Any stage that you've ever performed on, it's probably more uncomfortable asking for the charge initially than even performing in front of 1,000 people.
Right, because it's something I love so much. Like, I would pay to do magic.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody said, like, give me $100 and you can perform on this stage, I'd be like, yes.
Sure. Yeah.
But, you know, I don't know where you're posting this. I hope the people who are hiring me don't hear me say that, because, like, I am charging, you know, money. But I mean, but I think they know that. I think when I step on stage, no matter what, everybody in the audience is like, wow, he really loves doing this. And that's what I hope, because that transfers to them. They like it too. And at the end of the day, like, it's just crazy that this is what I get to do, but I'm so grateful for it.
Man,
that there are people who believe in it enough to be like, hey, this is worth bringing in, this is worth paying for.
Yeah. Now I have to ask, do you have any tricks with you today that we might be able to get for a quick clip in the
Sure,
in the vlog?
absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. We'll go ahead and wrap this up. Giancarlo, brother, thank you, and I'm glad to build this friendship with you.
Card right here on the table with the 4 diamonds.
Okay.
And then can you put your other hand or one hand on top of it? That way,
Yeah.
you know, I can't move it, can't do anything. Perfect. And this card here, this is the Joker. I'm gonna take the Joker.
Okay.
And just move the shadow of the card over your hand. I don't know if you felt the moment that happened.
Dude, get out of here. This is the stuff that I will never understand. I don't know how he does it. I know he didn't sell his soul, so that's cool.
Crazy.
Giancarlo, thank you again, man.
Of course, dude.
And we'll wrap it up here. We got to go drop this beautiful guy off at the airport so he can go on home and continue doing magic for hundreds of thousands of millions of people moving forward over the next couple decades of his life. And man, it was a great conversation. Great time meeting you. And guys, this is the power. You just, next time you're thinking about it, ask that person out for a coffee date or for, you know, some kind of business event, whatever it is. It's not going to hurt. 3 seconds can completely change your life in the best way possible. That being said, make sure to hit the, you know, share button, the subscribe button, leave a comment, and follow him across social media. Where can they find you?
I'm Bernini Magic on everything. So Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, whatever. Bernini Magic, BerniniMagic.com.
I'll make sure to leave the comment down below and, you know, link up everything there. And with that being said, let's wrap this up.